Welcome to the THRIVERY podcast, the show that explores elevated living. I'm your host, Jacy Smith, and in this community, we engage in conversations to inspire you to flourish in all aspects of your life, because you weren't created to merely survive. You were designed to thrive. Hi, friends. Welcome to the THRIVERY podcast. We have a great show for you today. It's episode 9 of season 2. And I have another dear friend here today, and I can't wait to share her with you. She's an adventurer. She lives life to the fullest. She has stories to tell. They're so interesting, and you're going to get to hear a few of them here today. So before we get into the conversation, let me share just a little bit about my friend, our guest today. Heath London is a visionary jewelry designer whose brilliant life sparkles through her award-winning creations, marrying a love for travel, the outdoors, and artistic expression. Raised in a small North Carolina town, Heath's dreams of fashion and jewelry took flight at the North Carolina School of the Arts and carried her to the transformative fields of Woodstock in 1969. Now based in Oregon, her designs, featured in W Magazine and worn at the Golden Globes and Emmys, have earned her the prestigious AGTA Spectrum Award alongside her honored membership in the American Jewelry Design Council. Obsessed with the light and history of natural gemstones, Heath collaborates with master jewelers to craft modern treasures that reflect her bold, adventurous spirit. A journey from a small town dreamer to a global design luminary. Welcome to the show, my dear friend, Heath London.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. Great to be here. Great to see you, my dear.
It's so good to see you, friend. And I have to say to all of the listeners, I affectionately call you, as you know, Hollywood, because that's exactly what you are. You're all the glamour. So if I refer to her as Hollywood, you know why, but that's exactly who you are. You're so glamorous.
Oh, yes, right.
Speaking of glamorous, look at these beautiful, not mine, but yours. I want you to tell us what you have on today. Ooh, so
Well, these are interesting because I enjoy taking things that were something else and making them into something different and new. And so the rock crystal part of these earrings you see were cut by the Germans for a bracelet for Cartier.
Oh, wow.
And there were some extra pieces. So I found them in this German gentleman's booth at the Tucson Gem Show,
Yeah.
and bought a few pieces, all that he had, which were like 4 pieces.
Mm.
And then I added a pave of Paraiba tourmaline, which is this really exquisite blue tourmaline, very rare now from Brazil.
Mm.
And then I added ice blue tourmaline from Namibia. So you can see maybe. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Stunning.
anyway, that was, but it started out with the crystals that I bought from the German gentleman that cut them from Cartier. So it's kind of new, old, make it modern. That's my thing. So.
Yes.
Anyway, that's
Well,
that's
they are
what I have.
gorgeous. And
Thank
that
you.
blue, my goodness,
Woo.
lights you up. You're gorgeous. As always,
Oh,
I know
God.
that I was thinking about this. We actually met over a decade ago. Can you believe that? It's been, you
Yeah,
probably could tell me when better than I can remember, but I was assisting and curating trips for the Texas Cultural Trust Group, and you were the featured artist there in Santa Barbara. So I got to meet you and collaborate as we were planning the trip for these ladies. And that is the first time I met you. And I remember having these conversations with you and planning and just fell in love with you immediately. And then we just connected and we've never stopped talking since.
yeah, I know. It's been on and on. And lots of, you've helped me with so many great adventures around the world and come to bat for us when things have not been so perfect sometimes, things out of our control, but you are
Yeah.
always there. I mean, day and night, it doesn't matter, 24/7. And so and we've just built from there, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just appreciate you so much and all your talents because
Oh,
whew, it has
thank
been really
you.
helpful.
Well, it's so much fun to plan travel for you and Robert, your husband. I mean,
Yeah.
I always tell you this, you could teach me a thing or two about travel. You're the world traveler. I've not met anyone who's traveled as much as you do, but I have so much fun collaborating with you and designing the new itinerary of, wherever you're headed next. And so it's so much fun that we've been able to do this over the years. And every time we get on a phone call, it's like old girlfriends
I
just
know it goes
together.
on and on. You
Love
got to
it.
leave plenty of time.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We're like, okay, we're gonna allot this much time. We always go over, but at least we get
Yeah,
all of our talking in and catching up. But
yeah.
you also, I have to say, speaking of all of these beautiful jewels and your creativity, which we're going to talk a lot about in this conversation, and I'm sure it weaves in and out of your story quite well. But you invited me to be your guest at the Emmys and the Golden Globes, and that was so much fun. And it wasn't just, well, all of the things. We got to have our hair done and our makeup done, and of course, get all dressed up. And I got to see you, put jewels on celebrities' necks and just have so much fun at the parties and but you know what was so fun to me, and this is where kind of this conversation, I think why we're here today is because I don't remember which time it was, but it was a breakfast, I think. We were sitting down and I just started learning so much about you. And I just remember thinking, are you kidding me? I still learn so much every time we talk, but you have lived quite a life already. And you are so full of life. You could run circles around me, but just listening to you and all of the stories, I just think listeners are going to love this. We're going to have such a great conversation. Thank you for being willing to share your story. And I'm just excited about all of what's to come through this conversation.
Great. I'm excited. I'm excited for I guess get ready for a little story time.
Story time for sure. Absolutely. Well, one of the things, oh, you know what else? Side note, you took me to the best. I don't even remember. It was a thrift store and a flea market.
Oh,
And
oh, yeah.
where did we go? Where did you take me?
I think I took you to Lily at Sea well, it's not really West Hollywood. It's kind of on the border between Beverly Hills and West Hollywood.
Yes. Yeah.
And just like the most fantastic, and not just new trendy designers, but Madame Grès from the 40s and 50s and on and on and
Yeah.
on. Famous old time French Balmain, just everything. And this woman knew and knows so much about vintage clothing, and it's just like a jewel box
It
and
was.
a treasure hunt mixed into one. But yeah, so that's
It
one of my
was
favorite
so
places.
much fun. I couldn't
Yeah,
believe my eyes. I'd never seen anything like
yeah.
not like that. Not a thrift store like that where
No, no, no. It's
with
beyond thrift
Chanel,
store.
like old
It's
Chanel dresses and
it's very upscale vintage. Yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah, we
yeah,
had so much
yeah,
fun. Okay, that I just had to say that because I was
yeah,
thinking back to all the fun. We had some great dinners and all of that, but I learned
yeah.
so much about you and what I thought was so interesting is you didn't start off as this, you know, California girl, glamorous. I mean, I think you already were glamorous, but you
No,
didn't start off in California in the big city. You grew up in a small town in North Carolina, right?
that's right. Me and the other 499 people in this little tiny town in North Carolina I think maybe it's on the map somewhere,
I think it is. Yep.
but it was pretty small in lots of ways.
Uh-huh.
And I was the girl from outer space in this town.
You felt You felt out of place.
I felt a bit out, but like I said to you earlier, it was because my mother, who was one of 9 children on a small farm in North Carolina, and the only girl,
Wow.
all the others were boys, but she had a very creative bent to her.
Mm-hmm.
She painted, she sang, she played the piano, she baked like Betty Crocker, eat your heart out
Mm.
kind of baking, and just saw me, my older sister, who was very quiet and unassuming and just didn't, play the piano and all that. And then there was me, who was like the wild and crazy one. I wanted to do all that, but then I wanted to go outside and learn to trap the rabbit and go hunting with my dad and doing all that kind of thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
but my mom saw that I was just a little off to the side, a little more abstract in my thinking and the way I saw things. And so she really fed me that kind of assurance that I was okay. I was a little different, but that she didn't stop me.
Mm-hmm.
She was there for me. She drove me to those dance classes and drove me to those art classes, and because it was a good ways from where we were. There was nothing in this
Right.
little town to support that kind of thing. So she spent, I can't imagine how many hours she spent on the
Mm-hmm.
road taking me and exposing me to all of these things, and taking me to Greensboro to see Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with Betsy
Oh my
Palmer. And
goodness.
I mean, to actually feel that I was a part of something somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
My people were out there somewhere.
Yes. Your mother sounds like such a force because she was creative in her own right. She, just exposed you to all of her creativity, but she always was really dedicated to you as well. Like you said, taking you to all the places and making sure that you felt like you had a place. That's really special. Not everybody gets that, but to have a mom that knew what to do with that and not just, just encourage you, but help cultivate that in you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my dad was there as just kind of dad, and he was a very outdoorsman, and he was known as the best freshwater fisherman in town. And he had all that, but he had girls. So, I was sort of, well, not sort of, beside the artistic part with my mom, I was sort of the tomboy
You
with
were.
my dad to do all those things that he would have done if I had been a boy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hunting and fishing and all that kind of thing. But he was a little more within the box,
Right.
but he did just let mother and I go off and do our things. And so, yeah, no, she was fantastic.
He was
Great
supportive of that.
spirit, great soul.
Yes,
And so, yeah, I give her a lot of credit for that. Uh,
absolutely.
Letting me feel that I was not alone or alien,
Yes.
you know.
What's a memory that you have if you think back to that time? Maybe it's something, maybe a store she brought you to, or one of your
Oh my
classes.
God. Yeah, well, because she was, besides all the other things I said about her, an amazing seamstress.
Right.
And so she would make all of our costumes for
Oh,
this dance school that I went to, that was started by one of the old Rockettes from Radio City Music Hall. This is
wow.
way back in the back machine. And Martha Aden. And she had a pianist whose name was Bird. We don't know why, but Bird, we had live music in our dance class, and Bird would be there playing the piano, cigarette. This is
Of
North
course.
Carolina,
Yes, yes.
smoking the cigarette and hanging out of her mouth, still playing the piano and doing all, and in like the capri pants and the white blouse, very, very 50s. But my mom would, beside making all the costumes, we had to get the fabric. And
Yes.
so she would take me to the one and only fabric store in the area. And I just remember the colors and the
Mm.
textures and even just the fragrances of the dyes
Mm-hmm.
in this big fabric store, and how much fun we had, picking and choosing. And with the dance costumes, always some kind of satin with some sequin border thing, and then you had the little
Oh
headpiece that
yeah.
she would make. So
Wow.
yeah, so those were some great times that we shared together.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I know that that has stayed with you because when we were planning on going to the Emmys and the Golden Globes, I remember you didn't go out and purchase a dress. You didn't go out and purchase any outfit. You went and picked out fabric to have it custom made. And if I'm remembering correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I was helping with a trip to Thailand or Cambodia or Vietnam, and you wanted to make sure that you got to go to this special place that you knew had this beautiful fabric there. Am I remembering this
Yes,
correctly?
yeah. All
Wow.
these embellished fabrics that
Yes.
are very famous in Vietnam, which now I see all over.
Yeah.
People are using them in lots of things, like a mesh fabric with like 3D flowers and
Right.
beads and maybe a little bit of sequin thing. And so, yeah, because that's like a treasure house there of
Mhm.
all those kinds of fabric. So it's one of the things I like to do when I travel is to go and see what they're doing with textiles. That's
Yes.
always interesting to me. Also, the ancient history of them there in
Mhm.
whatever country, and along with whatever is modern. So yeah, it's just a facet, just a fun facet.
That stayed with you for sure.
Yeah,
I thought that was so beautiful. And you would show me the fabric, and it was, before that they had even made it. I'm like, oh
yeah,
my goodness, that is gorgeous. And then seeing it come to life and seeing you in it, it was
yep,
special. It's special that you continue to do that. And
yeah,
um,
yeah. And a lot of that came from my going to the School of the Arts and studying dance for a couple of years, and then realizing, well, I didn't have the exposure to the kinds of teachers that a lot of these kids did. I mean, a lot of these kids had top-notch American Ballet Theater, the
mm,
New York. So my little bitty time, my little bitty experience, well, I was good, but I wasn't great. I had the spirit, but I didn't maybe have the same technique. So I got involved in the costume shop,
oh,
and that these were my people.
these were your
There I
people.
was again, and in North Carolina, known for all of its textile making in those days. We had
Yeah.
phenomenal fabric stores around this area in Winston-Salem,
Yeah.
which is where the School of the Arts is. So I got to get back to that kind of thing, that appreciation,
Mm.
and getting to see these costumes come to life. I would go and watch the rehearsals and see the actors and how they moved. But then once they put on those costumes for the first dress rehearsal,
Everything,
everything changed.
everything was different.
Everything changed. The
Uh-huh.
characters came to life. They were much more vibrant. I for one particular theater performance, I made what's called a cape coat, and it was from like the probably late mid 1800s, but it
Oh
was
my
a
goodness.
men's coat, and then it had three layers of capes sewn in. It
Whoa.
took me 2 months to make this. And in the actual play, the guy walks on stage in this beautiful coat, and he takes it off and he throws it down on the chair, and that was it.
That was it for 2 months of
Two
hard work.
months making this coat. And he walked on stage and took it off and threw it on a chair.
I think there may be some costume designers out there hearing this saying, I feel your pain. They probably feel this collectively. They're
Yeah,
gasping with
yeah.
you.
It did make a good entrance, though. It
Oh,
definitely made a good entrance.
absolutely, it did. Absolutely. You actually started talking about this school that I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about. What was that like? For people who don't even know about this school, North Carolina School of Arts, it was called then, right? And
Yes.
tell us about that. How did you, it's not just anybody can go. How did
No.
you get into this school? What was it, 1964 around?
It was started in 1964.
Okay.
I was that little girl in North Carolina sitting in that house, and my daddy would go pick up the paper every morning at the gas station and bring it home. And I would read the paper because, hey, outside world, hello, I need
Right,
to know
right.
what's going on. And there was an article about the fact that the governor of North Carolina at that time was Terry Sanford. And Terry Sanford, along with the textile giants and cigarette giants in Winston-Salem,
Oh
meaning
yeah.
the Haynes Corporation, Haynes
Mm-hmm.
Hosiery, and R.J. Reynolds family cigarettes,
Yep.
decided they wanted to take this old abandoned high school, gray high school, and make a performing arts school.
Hmm.
And they met a gentleman in New York, and Vittorio Giannini, he was a violinist who wanted to do the same thing.
Mm.
So they brought Vittorio to Winston-Salem. They had big meetings, and they decided this was going to be the first state-supported performing arts school. And so through all their vision, they created this school. And there were 200 kids there the very first year. You had to audition.
Mm.
People came from all over the world to
Right.
audition for this school.
Wow.
And I was auditioned by a very famous Russian ballerina. She did the dance, interviews. And so I think they said that it wasn't that my technique was so great, but that I had great enthusiasm.
Oh, I can't imagine that. I don't know where they
So,
got that
so
from.
I squeaked in the door with all of these like astoundingly talented people. And like I say, that was the beginning of my just creative life that just unfolded. I'm there. These are my peeps.
Mm.
I mean, musicians and dancers and singers, opera singers. We had our own opera. We had our own ballet. We had our own theater, live theater technicians. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
So that's when that whole phase of my life really took off. And I'm still friends with many of those people after 50 something
Are
years.
you really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty special.
Yeah.
What did
So,
that do for you? Coming from this small town, you say you barely got in. I'm sure you had quite the talent,
uh,
but they also saw something in you. They saw the thing in you. And you started, you were able to be in this community of other creatives. What did that do for you? Did that open something out up in you, unlock something? What changed for you by
well,
going there?
I had been what we called in the South in those days, picked on a lot
Uh-huh.
as a kid in this little school, in this little high school. And I mean, the elementary and middle school and high school were all in the same building.
Right.
So that tells you how small the town.
Yes.
And so I had been picked on quite a bit, but it really only made me stronger
Mm-hmm.
because I just knew that all of those people judging me and doing all that, water off a duck's back. Because I knew there was something bigger for me, a
Mm-hmm.
world bigger, a vision bigger. And when I got to the school, that was my place.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yes, okay. Now there's not going to be all of this outside negative, unattractive business going on because
Yeah.
these were my people. I mean, we didn't know how old anybody was. We maybe knew where they came from if they were from Bolivia, classical
Mm-hmm.
guitarist or something, but no one cared. No
Yeah.
one cared. Only thing we cared about was doing our art together, doing our artistic expression together.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
And the time was the 60s and everything was expanding and
Mm-hmm.
changing and things were going on and the music was changing and all those little prim dress girls in the early 60s, well now they were wearing bell bottoms and cut off top and
That's right.
things changed.
Yeah.
And so I was thrilled to be there at that particular time of my life and in the world.
Right. What
Things
a
were changing.
time to be alive.
Yep, yep. So, yeah, it did everything for me. Yeah, it did everything for me. And it really let me know that who I knew I was inside was valid
Mm-hmm.
and was authentic.
Yeah.
And yes, all right.
That's
Yeah,
right.
let's just zoom out from here,
Sounds like you really came alive. You were just feeling like you were in your place and you
I landed
appreciated
on
and
the right planet. I
yes.
landed on the right planet.
Yeah. That's incredible. And
Yeah.
so from there, how long were you there? And then
I
tell
was there for 4 years,
okay, 4 years.
2 years of high school and 2 years of college.
Okay.
So, but it felt like 4 years of college
I'm sure it
because
did.
it was intense because I would get up in the morning and I would go to dance class or work in the costume shop, go to school for 4 or 5 hours, regular school, then go back and work in the costume shop or have rehearsals for dance, and then have to do your homework. But then you would also have work in the evenings
Mm,
dealing with your art. So it was an
wow. It's
intense,
rigorous.
very rigorous, and that's why I say it felt like 4 years of college
I bet.
because it was a quite an intense experience, but I was loving it.
I'm
I
sure
was
you
loving
were.
it. Yeah, I was loving it.
That's
So
great. So
it
after
was.
this 4 years, this is when, okay, so I personally, until I met you, had never met anyone who had personally been to Woodstock 69. And when you told me, I just wanted to talk so much about that because I'm such a music lover. And
Yeah,
anyway, so from the time you're at this school and then you end up in Woodstock, like walk us through how this happened and then we can talk about what that was like because I
yeah.
have so many questions.
Well, because it was word of mouth. There was no internet. There were no
Right.
cell phones. There was none of that kind of stuff. But it was just in the air. And at the school there were kids, and I did summer stock theater, so I pretty much was year round there in Winston-Salem. I would go
Mm,
home, for a holiday or something, but I was pretty much there year round. So that summer, I was working summer stock and costumes for some theater production. And it was all this little chitter chatter, people talking about, oh, well, there's going to be this music festival in New York State. And, I hear, like Jimi Hendrix is going to be there and Janis Joplin and Grateful Dead. I mean, all these people that were of the really happening at the
oh yeah.
time. So, my people around me, I was dating a guy named Spanky at the time.
Okay.
Spanky.
Yes. Thank you.
But he was a townie. That's what we call people who weren't part of the school, but he was a
Okay.
townie. He was
Okay.
from Winston-Salem,
Yes.
and he had a Volkswagen Bug. And
Perfect.
so we decided that the show was over, and I had a little time between when the summer stock ended and when school was going to start again. So I was like, hey, let's do it. So we didn't know anything about who was going to be. I mean, the number of people coming, no one knew. So we
Yeah.
just got in this Volkswagen. We got there and you couldn't get anywhere near the venue because there were so many people.
Oh,
It was like this little 2-lane, like country road in New York State. They were not thinking that there were going to be 500,000
right.
people there.
That's
So
crazy.
cars were just stopped. People just stopped, got as far as you could go. So we walked probably 8 miles into the venue. And it was like this procession of the world was
Mm,
on the road going to this music concert. And so we got there and it was a happening event. There were children were born, people died, people
wow.
tripped out, it rained, it did. I mean, the circle of life went
Yes.
on in that one place.
Wow.
That was also accompanied by some of the greatest music of the
Uh,
60s that ever,
yes.
I mean, Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem?
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean,
You saw
whoa,
that live.
yes. And, you know, I did partake in quite a few of the
Oh,
things
did
that were
you?
going.
Gonna think you would, Stock. So how did that influence your next steps? Did you go back to Winston-Salem?
I went back to Winston-Salem and decided it was time to live off of campus,
Okay.
rented a house, the top of a house, and looking for a roommate. And a guy came knocking on my door. It was an outside stairway of this old house and came knocking on my door. And it was this darling guy who had just dropped out of the University of North Carolina. And his family was from Winston-Salem, but he didn't want to live at home. And so he was looking for a place. So I was like, cool. Well, I was back in school, and one night in November, a friend of his came to our door. And that guy turned out to be my first husband.
Okay.
And this tall, curly haired, cleft chin, just a outrageous guy. Besides all the way he looked, he had just spent the summer of love in San Francisco
Okay.
and had himself some mind-opening experiences. And he said, I really want to go to California. I really want to be in California and maybe Oregon.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, let's do it. Let's go. I'm ready. School has been great, but I need to just break out and
Right.
I need to get out of North Carolina. Love you, but gotta go.
Wow.
So we jumped in his Volkswagen bus with my dog and my German Shepherd, and we took off for the West Coast.
My goodness.
And because that was the place you want to be,
Right.
you
I
know,
mean,
that's
everybody knew that. I mean, I wasn't
everybody. I
born
mean,
then, but I
yeah,
know that. Yeah.
the Beach Boy. I mean, everything was happening
Hmm.
in California. So
Where did you
that's
land?
we landed in LA. So we knew LA wasn't quite our scene. So my ex-husband's sister lived in Marin County in
Mm.
Mill Valley. And so we went up there and stayed with her for a while. And that was cool and groovy. Got to see Janis Joplin
Oh,
live at the Family Dog and saw, Carlos Santana at this little tiny nightclub in Mill Valley. And it was all about, and Grateful Dead lived right up the road and Sammy Hagar. I mean, it was just,
oh my
and
goodness.
then we decided that we wanted to go to Oregon
Hmm.
because I had met a girl at the School of the Arts who was so cool, but she was from Oregon. And I was like, well, let's go there,
Yeah.
jump in the bus. And so we went there and we bought 480 acres of land in the
What?
way out in the country on the way to Crater Lake, and decided we were going to build our own house, a
Hmm.
cabin
Hmm.
out in the woods. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of the West Coast Magical Mystery Tour.
I love that magical mystery tour. So when you end up in Oregon, you bought 480 acres. I don't think I remembered this. I didn't
Yeah,
know it was that much
yeah, it
land.
was big. It was big. It
Okay,
was
so
big.
you
There was no running water, or electricity, nothing. There was no infrastructure.
okay, so what do? You have all of this land you own. You
Yeah.
have a bus that's painted. You have a handsome man with you
Yes.
and all the dreams in the world.
Yeah.
What do? Do you settle
Well,
there? Do you
we
what
did
happened?
because I called my dad and said, that old fishing tent that you have, we could really use that old fishing tent.
Oh my.
And I mean, it wasn't a pup tent. It was something that, I mean, I'm pretty petite, so I could stand up. My ex-husband was
Yeah.
6'4", but he was having a hard time. But anyway, so we lived in this tent on the land in this winter in Oregon
No, you
with
didn't.
snow and rain and all this kind of stuff. And we started chopping down trees, or I should say, he started chopping down trees. And so we were reading this thing called Foxfire, which at that time was this paper that came out for all the hippies about how to live on the land,
Okay.
self-sustain. So we were reading all this, so we thought, well, we can build this. We can do this.
Mm-hmm.
So we did. We actually ended up building this 20 by 40 log house.
Wow.
But in the meantime, I was pregnant and the baby was not supposed to be born quite as early as the baby was born. So we were still living in the tent. And yeah, I learned how to sew on a treadle sewing machine. I learned how to build a mean fire because we had no power.
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to cook on a wood stove, and just the daily doing of life took everything. So you went to bed when the sun went down, and you got up when the sun came up. So, if you ever need to have a fire starter, girl, I am good at it.
I know. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, this is so wild to even imagine because I talk about you're Hollywood. You're Hollywood
Yeah.
to me. That's what I call you. And you're so glamorous. But you know what I'm thinking? It reminds me of now it's all coming together for me because just like when you were young, your mom would bring you to do all the things and be creative. And then you also could be a tomboy. You could also go fish with your dad. And so I'm seeing this. I don't think I've ever put this together. But that's how this works because you did both. You could do both.
Yeah. Well, I just see life as, back to my gemstone jewelry world, is just having, you're like this orb and you have many facets, and some of those facets reflect off each other. And so, just like what you're saying, all of those facets are interconnected,
Hmm.
right? And so that's kind of how I see Heath London, as sort of this faceted gemstone, I guess.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
definitely are that. I can attest to that. And I love that about you. I love that there's so many I'm still learning things about you after over a decade of knowing you. So
Well, I've
I
been
just
around for a while, girl. There's some stories to tell.
oh, I'm here for it. I love all of your stories. We have so much fun when we
Yeah.
talk. So how long did you live in the woods on this 480 acre?
180 acres. Well, we were there. Anna was about 2.5, but almost 3 years old when we left. Because, well, in between that time we were living there, I had never really traveled anywhere
Mhm.
because I'd gone to New York with the Girl Scouts when I was 14 to the World's Fair or whatever, first airplane trip, Eastern Airlines. But I hadn't really traveled, and my ex-husband was brought up in a very affluent family in Winston-Salem. And they went to like Stad for skiing in the winter. They did, he had traveled a lot in Europe
Mhm.
and places like that. Not really much adventure, but Europe. So I was like, dude, let's do this trip because there's a lot to see and I need to start seeing some things. So
Yeah.
Anna was young, and she took her first steps at the Parthenon. I mean, we were gone. We took a van, not the Volkswagen, but a van on a ship from New York to Lisbon, and got off in Lisbon and drove that van. We were gone for 6 months. So we
Of course you
went
did.
everywhere. We went everywhere you could drive, all around, and then put it on the boat. We went to Scandinavia and we'd put it back on a different thing. We'd take it. And then we ended up in Greece, and we put that on. We left the boat, the van there in Greece, and flew to India because we were studying meditation. And besides, the Beatles had done all this, right?
Right,
So
right.
we needed to do this
Uh-huh.
and our own magical mystery tour. So we went to India and went to northern India and lived for 2 months with this master and studied meditation and had that experience that was just otherworldly, being in the presence of a living master at the time. And so then we came back to Greece and traveled a little more and came back to New York with the band. And anyway, that was all going on during that time that we were living in the woods. And then I finally realized that it was like, well, Anna needed friends. She
Mm-hmm.
needed some other kids because she was pretty isolated along with
Right.
us out there in the woods. So I was like, okay, I've sung every song, I've read every book, I've done everything that I can to entertain her, but she needs her people.
Yeah.
So we moved to Marin County,
Okay.
which is where Frank's sister lived. So yeah, that's how I got back to California.
So you're back in Marin County. That's how you
Yep.
made it back to civilization.
Got back to civilization. And then during that time, at that point, Anna's dad and I had been together for quite a while. Um, and he was a very talented man. He could do anything. He could have designed jewelry. He made beautiful jewelry. He could have been an architect. He could have been so many things, very talented and just a kind heart. But because his mother was very, well, this is kind of an old school word, domineering,
Mm-hmm.
he was afraid of failing
Oh.
in her eyes. And so consequently, he didn't really do anything.
Mm.
He had enough money that he didn't ever have to work in his life and didn't. So I just knew that, mm, and I was young, but I did know enough to know I couldn't make him be something that he wasn't or wasn't willing
Right.
to be.
Right.
So we ended up getting a divorce.
Okay.
And I just said, because his family all thought I was after his money, because I was kind of the girl from the other side of the tracks and whatever, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I just said, listen, all I want is the kid in the car. After that, you could just keep your silver lamps. You can keep your all that stuff. I don't need it.
Mm.
I'll work it out. I don't know what I'll do, but I'm going to do something. So just give me Anna in the car. That's
Mm.
it. So
This is the part of this season of your life, I guess, is single mom. And
single mom.
had all of these adventures coming from this small town in North Carolina and all of the things that you just shared with us. And here you are, you're single mom. What was that like for you raising Anna and eventually meeting your love, Robert?
Yes, my
I
darling
want to
Robert.
hear all about that.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
that season.
it was again that coming back to that facet of fearlessness,
Yes.
not settling. I
Mm-hmm.
was not happy. I wasn't happy because my ex-husband wasn't happy. I couldn't make him happy. I couldn't make him anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just knew who I was enough to know that I could do this. I could make it work. I was not afraid to work. I mean, I worked 6 days a week. I did everything I could. I made clothes for people. Had a vintage clothing business. But all created by me and with some help from my friends.
Mm.
And so, we struggled. We lived in a kind of a funky apartment, but I was really concerned. I was in a good school district.
Right.
She was in school. She had the best. Turns out she was dyslexic,
Mm.
which only 1 in every 5 dyslexic people are women. Very
Did
interesting.
not know that.
Yep. And so, but this was the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Nobody was really talking about this stuff.
Right, right.
So I knew that she wasn't dumb, but the
Mhm.
teachers were saying like, well, she's having some problems. Maybe she doesn't see well, maybe, move her to the front of the class. And I was like, But the weird thing was with her is that she had mirror vision. She could write from right to left and it read correctly left to right.
What?
Yes, along with
That's incredible.
other things, she had this mirror vision thing. So I'm like, all righty now, let's see, we got to do something here.
Yeah.
So I took on extra work and I was brought up Protestant, but I found a Catholic nun who helped with kids who had these kinds of learning problems.
Hmm.
So I would take her to see the sister after school, and we were able to conquer these learning issues. And she graduated from Berkeley.
Of
So
course she
hey,
did.
yeah.
Of course she
So,
did.
but those were part of the challenges
Yeah.
with in the early times like that. But you know, so what? You just get out there and do it.
And you did it.
Yeah.
And all of the things I'm just seeing, like you talked about making clothes for people and you did whatever it took and you were driving Anna to see this
Yep.
nun. I mean, sounds pretty familiar. Sounds like the mom you had, that's doing
Oh,
all these
guess
things.
so.
Uh-huh. See that coming.
Yeah.
So how did you eventually meet your love, Robert, the man that you spend your beautiful life with? How did
Yep.
that come to be?
I was hired. I got involved in the party business, event production. And one of the events that I was hired to do was a 5-day conference in San Francisco, as we called it, the city,
Hmm.
um, for a stock brokerage company.
Wow.
And the first night, it was 5 nights of events. And during the day, spousal programs, women to the wine country, blah, blah. But the first night, I was at this party and running the show, getting all the caterers and everybody to get enough food. And I see this guy staring at me from across the way. It was at the Ferry Plaza restaurant in San Francisco by the bay and beautiful. And this guy's like smiling big at me. And I'm thinking 800 guys in suits. Okay. There's
Uh-huh.
going to be at least one or two guys that are going to ask you out. Right.
Right.
So this guy's like smiling. I'm thinking, oh, it's this tray of shrimp that I have that he's smiling at. I don't think he's smiling at me. And so I go over and he's like, I said, well, would you bet? And he's like, well, I don't know that I do, but you look pretty cute. I was like,
Ooh,
oh, please, single mother, been working hard all these years.
right?
I got your jive. I can't,
Yeah.
no, that's great. See you later. So, and then later I saw him and he gave me his business card and he said, call me. I was like, I am not calling you. I'm a
Mm,
girl from the South. We do not do that.
right.
Anyway, every night I would see him and he would ask me again why I didn't call. So finally I gave him my office number. And then a couple of weeks he called me and we went out. And that was the beginning. He had been a bachelor for 20 years.
Oh.
Now, a single straight guy in San Francisco in the 80s, there were like four of them, right? There were maybe four straight
Right.
guys in
And
the
you
city.
met
Yeah.
one of the four.
I met one of the four. And, all my tall, beautiful girlfriends were like, oh, you'll never meet anybody in the city. They're all gay and everybody's. I'm like, good. You just stay right home, right here on this couch because I am going.
Exactly. I'm
See
gonna
ya.
find the one of
That's
the
right.
four.
Well, and if maybe. So anyway, that's how we met. And that was September, not that I remember, that was September 6th, 1985.
Wow, you remember.
And this is 2025.
It
So that
is.
means we got married in 89 and just took off from there. He had only taken 1 week off a year making partner in this stock brokerage firm.
Right.
He had worked really hard and I was like, ooh, you making too much money and not having enough fun. So
Right. That's not
get
gonna
your,
work.
no, get your passport, buddy, because we got places to go.
Oh yeah. That's a requirement with you. If you don't have a passport, that's
Oh
not
yeah,
gonna
no,
work.
and you've got to be a good traveler.
Yes.
We did a couple of test runs because I was
You?
not marrying anybody that was rude to the staff
Right,
or
right.
didn't know how to handle it or fell apart if something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. You got to be able to roll with it and think on your
Mhm.
feet.
It's
So,
important. It really is. I had a
yeah,
similar
yeah,
prerequisite. Yeah,
yeah. It tells you a lot about him.
it
So
does.
he was a really good traveler. And
Um,
I was like, and a good dancer. So that really
oh,
made it great.
even better. What was the trip that you took him, or the two trips to try it out, just to see how he traveled? Do you remember?
Yeah, where did we go?
Uh-huh.
Yes, one was we went to Las Hadas in Mexico.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And then the other trip was we went to Bora Bora.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which,
Fantastic.
that was pretty great. So he
He
passed the
passed.
travel test.
He
Yeah,
passed.
yeah.
I know he passed because I am fortunate and blessed enough to be able to assist with both of your travels at times. And so I know that you are still making memories together. You have a lot of fun together. And
Yeah.
there is nothing stopping you. Well, I know I'm jumping ahead
But-
in your story here, but we'll talk travel in a minute. We'll just put a pause right there because I
Yep.
know there's a lot there. But I really want to jump into how this jewelry designing came to be and this beautiful art form that I mean, the listeners are going to have to go to your website, heathlondon.com, and they're going to have to look at, they're so exquisite, so unique. The gemstones that you use and just, I don't know, there's so many, it's very, very unique and unlike anything I've ever seen. And the way that you put colors and patterns and just even the different gemstones you put together, it's just very unique. So when did this start? I mean, I know obviously I can look at your story. I can imagine that all of it built up to this moment where I don't know how it came to be, but we know all of the creatives that were surrounding you, but also you being a creative, your mom nurturing that, and you are at this place where you're designing jewelry now. When did that happen? How did that happen? Tell us
Well,
how it got started.
well, back to the very beginning was with my dad when we were in North Carolina. There is a small deposit of emeralds. I
Mm,
think maybe it's one of the very few places in America. If there is another, I'm not sure where it is, but
I think I knew that.
so he would take me, another outdoor adventure, up and try to find emeralds at this little emerald mine up in the mountains of North Carolina. So that was always intriguing to me that there would be this bits of green stone, green light that was coming up from the earth and that you could find these things. And also had growing up in the sandhills of North Carolina, which is a very obviously sandy area. I would discover outside when I was playing around with my dogs these things called Indian paintballs.
Oh.
And not like a paintball that is today, but it was Indian war paint. And
Mm,
so the Indians there in that area would take the pigment and grind it into with the sand and make this very fine powder. So the pigments were from, any kind of natural, something, a red berry or whatever, and would make these paintballs and push them together, wet them, and roll them in the sand. So
hmm.
you would find on occasion these round balls of Indian war paint.
Oh my goodness. I've never heard of this.
A
Kind of like an
wild thing.
arrowhead, right? Like
So
that you're
there would
finding.
be arrowheads, but then there would be these balls
I've
coated
never
with
heard of it.
sand, and you would crack them with a hammer, and there would be pigment inside. So
Wow.
I, of course, played like, oh, I'm an Indian with a
Yeah.
dog, and you put a little water in there, you make the things on your face. But so that was sort of the beginning of saying, whoa, things are coming out of the earth that
Mm,
are expressions of color. And so but I didn't grow up. My mother had only a wedding band. She didn't have a diamond. There was no jewelry to speak of in my family. But my ex-husband, who came from the very affluent family,
right.
his mother, beautiful, tall, 5'8", prematurely gray hair, gorgeous thing,
Mm,
had lots of beautiful jewelry. So I was always exposed to her beautiful jewelry being
mm,
when I was married to him and got to see how that sort of other side of the world lived
yes.
and how and their expression in jewelry. And so and then my ex-husband also fabricated some beautiful jewelry. So that was always interesting to me. And then came the period where I didn't have any money and I didn't, I was more, concentrated on bringing up Anna and taking care of her. So I didn't have money to invest in anything like that. And then when I met Robert, um, I was able to find a man in Santa Barbara. We moved to Santa Barbara, who I call the gym meister. And he knew everything and was willing to share with me all of his knowledge. I would go to his shop and he had a giant safe. And in that safe, I would say, okay, Mike, show me. I want to see what's the best blue sapphire. What
Mm.
is the best red spinel? What is the best of the aquamarine? Show me the best. And so he would share all that information with me. And so I got to really be knowledgeable about what was going on because of his generosity. And then I would also, at the same time, I would say Christmas would come around and I'd go into his shop and I would pick out loose stones. And I would say to Robert, hello, this is, here's 3 different stones, different price
Based
range.
on my
You
Christmas
decide
list.
what you
Yeah.
feel like, because he works at the stock market. So,
Yep.
sometimes it's good, sometimes it's middle ground. So gave him the options. And so I was designing and they were fabricating for me in this store. And then I realized eventually that I need to like support my habit
Right.
of having jewelry made and maybe not pay retail for all these stones. And so that was kind of the beginning. That was not kind of, that was the beginning of my getting involved actively in the jewelry design business and being able to express that artistic bent that I had, but through color and texture, light. To me, it was about getting that stone. If you look at my work, it's not about the gold work.
Mm-hmm.
It's really about gathering light to the stone itself, which really is what shows it in its greatest glory, as far as I see. So, yeah, and the colors are endless, and the combination of colors and bringing in different textures within the stone.
So it really kind of came from a lot of different places along the
Yes,
way. And
yeah.
what's the first piece that you remember that you made that just screamed Heath, that or Hollywood, but you were so proud of it. You remember, maybe just dreaming it
Yeah.
up and then it came to life.
Well, I call it the Queen of Hearts ring. And it's kind of like a cigar band ring, is what they call it. And but I had this group of, and I don't usually do anything that's literal, like, oh, this is a bird, this is this,
Right.
but these were heart-shaped pink sapphires.
Mm.
So I created this band that had these pink heart-shaped pink sapphires, and so they were opposing each other. Like the round part would be at the top and the pointed top. So it danced its way all around the band, and
Mm.
then interspersed with some. It's on my website, but interspersed with some uh, rectangular shaped diamonds.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah, this is really fun.
Yeah.
And this is, like I say, it was the Queen of Hearts.
I love
And so that was kind of the beginning of it all. And then it just took off from there.
Yes, speaking of taking off, you have all of these accolades, these awards, the AGTA Spectrum Award in 2018 and the Couture Nods and the AJDC membership. What does it mean to you seeing your dreams stack up like that?
Well, honestly, what I feel, I still feel like I'm that little girl from that little town in North Carolina who is just really having a good time.
Uh-huh.
And what I mean, I have gotten 4 of the Spectrum Awards over a period of a few years, and every time I'm just like, wow, okay, somebody sees the world the way that I see it. Somebody gets me, they get my vision. And the most recent thing with that AJDC, it's just American Jewelry Design Council that took me. I mean, I all I could do was laugh when they called me to say that I had been selected. I was like, I just broke out in laughter. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, that puts me in this category with these like really big time, stupendous jewelry designers. And So
That's you,
again,
girl. That's who
I
you are.
no. I mean, I'm just having a good time.
You are having a
Anyway,
good time. I love that you're having a good time.
yeah,
But it's just so great to see your work being rewarded and awarded with these accolades and these
yeah, it's
awards.
fun.
I mean, even in W Magazine, tell me if I'm saying this correctly. Is it Paraiba earrings that got the
Paraiba.
Paraiba?
Paraiba. Paraiba is a region in Brazil in the north area, which is
Okay.
where the mine, where this stone was found. It's a tourmaline that has a lot of copper. And when it's copper bearing, it makes it that blue green color. Just like verdigris, when you see a copper pipe that the water has dripped down for a long time, it's
Right.
that same kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, yeah.
Got their attention at W Magazine.
Oh, well,
I I remember too, you actually do some of your traveling around
Oh,
your
yeah.
your love of
I
gold.
love to incorporate either fishing, which
I
is sort
know.
of bizarre,
Yes.
fishing. Well, that fantastic trip that you helped us put together in Australia, where the most famous pearling family in all of Australia is the Paspaley family.
Yeah.
And we were able to go out on this very fun 1949 airship, I call
Yes.
it,
Yes.
airplane that lands on the belly of the plane on the water. It's not pontoon, but the whole plane lands on the water, and out to their pearling ship above in the northern part of the Kimberley, near where Indonesia and Australia meet in the Timor
Mhm.
Sea. And so I got to go out there with these people, learn all about. I just wondered, why are these pearls so expensive?
Right.
I mean, an individual pearl can be thousands of dollars. I'm like,
Mm.
how is this possible? Well, I found out.
Tell us.
It's so labor intensive. First off, water has to be perfectly clean.
Hmm.
And so the Australian government is very conscious of this asset that they have in these
Mm.
Australian pearls. And they're white, Australian South Sea pearls. So the water has to be very clean. And they make these frames that are kind of like a mullion window, kind of like
Hmm.
that. And in each one of these squares, they put this Pinctada maxima, which is the largest of the oysters. And they put them in these little things, frames. They put them in the water, and they can only be 2 meters deep. It can only sit in 2 meters of water. If they're too low, if they're too high, they don't produce the same kind of pearl.
Wow.
So consequently, these frames have to be cleaned every 2 months. So we're talking about labor. So
Yeah.
every 2 months, these guys go out from the big mothership out to these pearling areas and clean all of these frames of barnacles, of
Mm.
seaweed, of anything, so they maintain this right level in the water. So that is 4 years,
4 years of
Four
all
years.
high
Four
maintenance.
years. Well, actually, it's not true. 2 years for the first round. They take them out and then they bring them back to the ship. They delicately and surgically open up the mouth of the oyster, let it relax, use a little tool, and boop, there's a pearl. They take that pearl out, then they nucleate it with a bead made of shell, depending on the millimeter, and insert it back into the mantle of the oyster. It closes up. They take it again, put it in a thing. So 2 years, your crop is good. 4 years, your crop is excellent.
Wow.
6 years, it's good. So the very best pearls come from that 4 year cycle
And you got to
of the
lay your eyes on some of those, right?
I got to see it all. I got to see the take of the day, and they're not all perfectly round. And that's the thing. It can take years to make a necklace, one necklace of beautiful white South Sea pearls, because they have different luster, they have different overtones. Some can be pinkish, some can be ivory, some can be pure white. So to create a strand of Paspaley white South Sea pearls is an incredible process. So
Mm.
therefore, that's why they cost
I'm getting it
thousands
now.
and yeah,
I think I
and sometimes
understand a little
hundreds
bit.
of thousands of dollars, depending on the millimeter. So yeah, so those kinds of things I like to build travel around, as well as like fishing for tiger fish on the Zambezi,
I love that.
going to Tierra del Fuego and going, going to Mongolia, fishing for this one kind of fish and, adventure.
Adventure. That's your middle name. Hollywood Adventure London.
Yeah,
That's your name.
yeah,
But you've already led us into this travel piece here, and I want to talk about that because that's a shared passion that we have. Again,
yes.
I don't know anyone who's traveled as much as you have, and I learned so much from you and your adventures. But what's one that just, and I have my thoughts on what you're going to say, but maybe you'll surprise me. But tell me, what's one trip that you just can't get out of? You don't want it to ever leave your heart.
Oh, well, well, depends. Fishing is probably Mongolia, but I would say that as far as just a great and wonderful adventure and something that I'm packed and ready to go at any moment would be Africa,
Yes, we agree on
specifically
that.
really Botswana.
Me too.
Botswana.
Wow.
There's just something about it. It's just, you just feel like, I don't know. I just kept feeling, what, this is where I'm from.
Mm,
This is so ancient. This is so ancient, this land. And it's just, well,
I
you know
know.
how it is. And I've been lucky enough to be living in Egypt and Morocco and let's see, Namibia and South Africa and Botswana and Zambia and just, there's nothing like it.
Yeah,
There's nothing like it. And the
I agree.
animal life, oh my gosh, seeing those leopards, oh,
Oh,
yeah, so looking in those eyes, those green eyes of those leopards is like,
mhm.
okay,
Or
yeah,
hearing
you
a
are
lion outside of your tent at
oh,
night
yeah,
roaring and you
yeah,
are frozen because you are terrified, but also thrilled at the same time.
yes, yeah.
There's
No,
nothing.
you're alive.
You
You
know
know,
you're alive.
you're alive. I mean, when that
Mhm.
boomslang came to my window in South Africa trying to eat this frog, and I'm like, what is this snake? I don't like snakes, but I was like, what is this snake? And I look at my book and I go, oh, for God's sake, it's one of the most deadly snakes in the
Right.
world
You
is
had me at
on my
snake.
window.
Yeah. I can't believe. I don't know what I would have done. I am
I
terrified.
was glad I was inside with the door between me and him. I mean, I was like that, and he was on the other
Oh,
side. I was like, holy moly, boomslang. Okay.
I can't
So
think of a place that you haven't been in the world, but
there's
what's on your list? What's on your list of a place you haven't been? I know we probably talked about this, but for the
well,
listeners who don't know.
we are going with your assistance here in August to the Atacama.
Yeah,
I fished a lot in Chile, but have never been up to the desert because
hear
there's no
you.
water there for fishing.
There's not.
But a lot of stargazing, etc.
Yes, yes.
And we're going there, and then we're going out to Easter Island, which I find very intriguing and can't wait to see those big moas and just experience all of that and learn.
Yeah.
Robert and I, we don't go anywhere to lay on the beach. We really want to learn things, and find out about cultures. And I like to be somewhere where I don't know the language. I can't relate to the alphabet,
Mm,
where everything is just totally foreign,
right.
so that I can be a sponge to absorb all of this newness and learn, and the visions and the colors, and how in India, like the women and their jewelry, even though they have nothing, but they have all this jewelry, be it glass or gold or weeds woven together, the smell of the food. I like to go to the markets, see how they eat and what they eat and what I am not going to eat.
Right.
And
Exactly. I know I
yeah,
won't eat that.
I'm not going to eat that yak head, and I am not going to eat that snake. But
Yeah.
so yeah, you know, that's on the list. I would like to go to Sri Lanka. That would be a
Mm.
gemstone thing.
Hmm.
Ceylon, sapphires, of course.
Oh,
But yeah, we went to the diamond mine in the Argyle mine in Africa right before they closed. I mean, in
mhm.
Australia right before they closed. That was interesting. Home
Yes.
of pink diamonds. But it's nice to have a reason to learn.
Always.
Travel. Yeah.
Lifelong learning. I'm all
Yep.
about it. You
Yep.
are
Yep.
too.
Yep.
I know you
Yep.
are. You're up
Yep.
for the adventure. You've
Yes, ma'am.
mentioned fishing so many times, and I think I never put it together either that it started with your father.
Oh yeah.
When you travel, you also love to fish. Now, was Robert already a fisherman or
Well, the best part about my darling Robert is that he is willing.
yes.
He is willing. I
Yes.
mean, he would sit at his desk and read for the rest of his life.
Hmm.
But that was another thing that was very, attractive to me about him was that he was willing to go on the crazy wild adventures with me and no whining, just a good sport. He doesn't need to know anything. We get on the airplane and I give him a little piece, like some information in a folder. And I said, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to see. And I know you're going to have a good time.
Uh-huh. He
So,
did want to go somewhere though for his birthday a couple years ago. It was his request,
yes.
Australia, right?
Oh, no, where he
Oh,
wanted to go, he wanted to go to Norway.
Norway. Yes.
He had never been to Norway. I
Oh,
had been on the Magical Mystery Tour back in the old days. I had
exactly.
been all over Scandinavia, but he had never
You're
been.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
so that was Norway. We did that, and
Hmm.
it's beautiful. Yeah, it
Hmm.
was good. He was thrilled. So, yeah, but then I was like, okay, you don't get to choose for another 10 years. No, this is
He's
too
fine
tame for
with it.
me. It's beautiful and very civilized. I don't want to
Yes,
be somewhere civilized.
exactly. So fishing, do you
Yeah.
ever feel like you're out in the water somewhere, you're having this quiet moment, and you have a rod in your hand? Is there something that just, I don't know, are you able to dream, have vision about creating jewelry, or where do you get
Oh,
inspired
well,
to
because
travel?
the like New Zealand, say for instance, which we've been to quite a few times, it's like grad school of fly fishing. It's very difficult, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful area. But you learn a lot about the people when you see how they treat their waterways.
Hmm,
And how some places are like really dirty, and you don't want to
right.
fish there because you get poisoned. But it's and just being out in the quiet, like New Zealand, for instance, when you hear rustling in the bushes behind you, it's not going to be a bear because
Right.
they don't have any bears. It's
Yes.
a bird and some kind of tui in the background making this noise. But it's an excuse to also be out, and it's silent,
Mm,
and it's hiking, it's stalking the fish, and we're fly fishermen, catch and release. So it's not like we're killing the fish or anything like that, with nothing wrong with it, but that's just not our thing.
mhm,
But these fish are paintings. These fish are works of
mm,
art. I mean, these trout, these rainbow trout, these brook trout, I mean, with the red spots and I mean, they're just these amazingly beautiful creatures. Taimen in Mongolia, these big giant fish that look like something prehistoric. I mean,
mm,
it's just, but it's the whole scene. It's the clarity, it's the water, it's the nature around you, it's the bird life. It's just, again, all the learning that goes
mhm.
into that experience. And fly fishing, you never learn it all. You get outsmarted by a creature with a brain the size of a green pea time after time.
I've not
So,
yet tried fly fishing, but I promise you I'm
yeah,
doing it. It's on my
it's
list.
a
I can't
good,
believe
it's
I
a,
haven't done it yet.
it's a really great sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm over here just watching you. You're lit up as you talk about all of these things. You're believable. Like I believe you. I believe every word you're saying, and you've lived this extraordinary, full, interesting life. And so I have to ask you, I ask everyone that comes on this
Mm.
show, what does thriving mean to you?
Thriving, in order for me to thrive, again, I have to be fearless.
Mm,
I have to be fearless. I have to be open. Um, Being joyous. Thriving is if I can make someone in the grocery store smile by mentioning, oh, and honestly, like, wow, that's a great pair of earrings, or I love your shoes, and if that person who maybe has not had anybody to speak to or speak with, or lives alone, or especially during the pandemic, you would see these people who were so shut off and cut, because of fear and all this, and if even within your mask you could bring a smile to their face, that's fantastic. That's my job, is that kind of joy. And I'm thriving on that. Right?
You are.
But you have to be fearless to do that. You can't be afraid to speak to a stranger and share something that might bring them joy. As I say, open hand, not the fist.
Yes, I love
Give me
that.
that open hand. So that's my joy.
You're full of joy and you are definitely thriving in life. And that just takes me to the next question. And that is, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but if there is a young person out there, I don't know if they're listening to this show, or not just a young person, maybe someone who's thinking that they'll never get out of a small town, or maybe a closed mindset even. Maybe they're in a situation where they just don't see that they could ever have what their heart really holds, that these dreams, and they are creative. Maybe they feel misunderstood and they're unique, but they just don't feel like they fit in where they are. What would you say to them?
Well, again, you have to be self-observant. You have to pay attention to your thoughts and see what really brings you joy and what brings you peace.
Yeah.
But again, all comes back to being fearless, and listen to yourself and know, oh, well, this makes me feel joyous. This makes me feel high. This feeds me, right? So you just have to experiment with yourself, but being self-aware of who you are and when you feel right. When do you feel right? When do you feel your innate self? And you got to be fearless. And when you feel that place in yourself, you just got to go for it. You just got to go for it and make it happen. You can manifest any life you want. Don't sell yourself short. Just be fearless.
That's such good advice. Wisdom is found right here in this conversation. You have so much wisdom in all of your life stories, and I really appreciate you sharing all of it with us. It's been pure gold, no pun intended, but as you said, you do less gold, more of the brilliance of the gemstones.
$3,500 an ounce now, honey. It's really gold.
But Hollywood, I just love
Hollywood.
you. I love you, and I love your life story. I love who you are. I love that you have been fearless, and I am always inspired. I love our talks, and just even though I knew a lot of your story, hearing it again, it never gets old. It's so much fun, and you are such an inspiration. I want to make sure that listeners know how to find you, because they're gonna want to know how to find you. So it's heathlondon.com, correct?
Yes, and Instagram, Heath London Jewelry.
I'm back anytime.
All right. Thank you, Miss Jacy.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too. Thank you for joining us on the THRIVERY podcast. I hope this discussion inspired you in your pursuit of elevated living. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow us, click the share button and send to friends, and also tag us in your socials. For more information and to stay connected, visit our website at thrivery.life. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time.